Okay, I have a young man here.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. My question is...
Mike is my number one fan. He looks pretty young for that.
How do you qualify to be the number one fan?
Yes, he just is, that's all.
It's a lot of collecting.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, do you bring...
We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our in-studio guest is Michael Stern, author of I Had a Ball, My Relationship with Lucille Ball. You know, Mike, it's interesting. You know, you and I have known each other, 35 years, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, figuring it out because your dad and I worked together in the 70s. When I announced on Facebook and announced on the show that we were going to have you on, I can't believe how many people called me up or emailed me and said, hey, show me how to get on the link. So we've got people listening. We normally have people listening we've got some listeners in Vancouver, some on the East Coast, a bunch in Los Angeles. We've got people listening today, old friends of yours and your dad's and mine.
Very nice.
From Simi Valley and Palm Springs. And, your dad was very loved. And
he was a special guy.
Yeah.
Special guy. Good humor,
really
sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah, neat guy.
My parents were together 55 years.
Yeah, that's special, very special. You were telling me the other day you got to visit with Valerie Bertinelli and Betty White. What show was that?
Well, they have a brand new series. Actually, it's been on for a couple seasons now, called Hot in Cleveland on TV Land. And Betty White was being honored last Saturday, at Actors and Others for Animals. You know, she's very much into the animals, and she was being honored. And I see Betty White a few times a year, and it's always, hello, Michael, how are you? You know, so nice. You know, Betty White knows who you are. Somebody made a joke. It's like at somebody's funeral, if somebody could say, and they knew Betty White, you know you were in.
Right.
The sweetest lady that you could think of. And so I got my photo taken with all the people from Hot in Cleveland. It's a great photo of all of them.
That's a great picture.
Yeah. Thank you. It's on my website, thelucyfan.com. thelucyfan.com.
And you're going to be at Russo's today at 2:30 to 5 to autograph books.
Yes, my book.
Russo's at the Marketplace.
So he's not going to autograph just any book. It's going to autograph his book.
I Had a Ball.
I did.
My friendship with Lucille Ball.
You live in Northridge, California. How long have you lived in Northridge?
I lived in Northridge for right before the '94 earthquake. So
what brought you to Northridge, California?
Well, I lived in Canada, and when I was 6 years old, my parents moved to California, and they said, Michael, you could either stay here in Winnipeg by yourself, or you could come to California.
At 6 years old.
At 6 years old. So I made the wise choice of packing up and coming to California, and we lived in the San Fernando Valley since then.
And for those people who have matriculated to Bakersfield from the San Fernando Valley, you went to Grant High School?
I did before I got removed from the school, but that's another book.
The same high school I went to, by the way.
I graduated from Van Nuys High School.
Oh.
Enough said.
And then you went to Valley College?
I went to Valley College. I went to Cal State Northridge. And Lucy actually taught a class at Cal State Northridge.
She did. What was that?
It was a Q&A. It was a semester of learning Lucy. And she showed a lot of old shows and techniques and a lot of Q&A. And she had probably about 100 students. And you had to learn the art of acting.
Now, let me guess. You took that class.
I did take the class, but I was not a student at that time at that school. I was her guest every week.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice to have to be somebody's number one fan like that?
Friends in high places.
Yes, I knew the professor.
I mean, Clay, I'm your number one fan. It hasn't got me anything.
I know.
Yeah.
And it won't.
No, it won't. One other story. The story about May Company. You worked at May Company. It was the funny thing is there was a House of Fabrics next door to May Company.
I remember that.
I used to manage that years and years
really?
ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But tell us about the May Company.
The May
story.
Company was my first job. And like I said, Lucy always said, Michael, get a job, stay in school. I got a job. I was like 16 years old at the time. And I called her office and I said, could you please tell Lucy that, I'm working now at the May Company. And, Wanda, the secretary, said, okay, I'll tell Lucy that you're working. Well, she really did. She did tell Lucy. And Lucy came over the hill from the Beverly Hills to North Hollywood to make sure that I was working. She brought a friend of hers, Mary Wicks, who's a character actress, was in Sister Act and a million movies, a million television shows. And Lucy bought linens for me. She bought, I think, over $600 worth of linens She wanted to make sure that I was working, that I did a great job, that I was working, and then she gave me her home phone number. She said, "Do you play backgammon?" I go, "No." She says, "You'll learn." And I was at her house 2 days later, and we were playing backgammon 2, 3, 4 times a week
for quite a number of years.
For 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you'd go over to her house 2 or 3 times a week,
right,
for 10 years.
Right. Not
wow.
Some weeks, none.
Sure.
I mean, if she was working on a show or whatever. Yeah. But I was there a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And now keep in mind, those of you that don't know Los Angeles, the May Company in North Hollywood is in the San Fernando Valley. It's over the hill from where Lucy lives, and she had to pass at least 1 or 2 May Companies I can think of before she'd get to your May Company.
There was a May Company probably less than a mile from her house.
Uh-huh.
But she also liked my discount. And
well, she needed the money, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? No matter, even my parents taught me this. No matter how much money you have, you always want more, and you want to save the money that you have.
You know, that brings up a question that I haven't heard anybody ask you. You know, as far as the business person in the relationship, everybody gives Lucy credit for that, but Desi was pretty sharp.
Oh, Desi was very sharp about business, and he created the 3-camera technique. He created so much for that show. And Lucy was in front of the camera when he was behind the cameras, you know. He created it all.
Does she, I think she owns the shows, or owned the
Not
shows.
anymore. In 1958, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz sold the series back to CBS for like $8 million. But with that $8 million, they bought a studio, and then they bought another studio. So it kept growing, and finally Lucille Ball, after the divorce, bought Desi out, and then created, you know, the Lucille Ball Company Productions.
What's a standard residual that an actor would get, like Lucy, on a show when she was alive?
Well, they weren't making that much. Well, yeah, they were making a lot. I think Fred and Ethel were making, at the very end, after 10 years, like $2,500 a week. So 20 years later, and they didn't have residuals for that show, but I've heard people get checks for 38 cents, you know, now. I mean, you know, they get a big chunk the first time and a little less the second time. But a show that's been running, you know, 90 times, you know, you may get 32 cents.
Well, like today, though, with Charlie Sheen, as an example, he's talking about getting millions every time the show is.
But then it drops every single time.
I see. So you really do have to continue to work. And Lucy did work until she died, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she loved her arena. She called it her arena.
Now, the last time you saw her, she was with Bob Hope?
At the Academy Awards. That's the last time I saw her on TV doing Lucille Ball.
But you were in the audience at the time.
I was in the audience.
Yeah, because she did wave at
you.
Yeah.
Right. And she didn't want to do that show. And Bob Hope finally called her a few times and said, "Come on, Lucy, let's just do it. Come on, let's do it." And so she had to be pushed to do it. At that time, you know, she wasn't really feeling that well, and but she did do it. She looked wonderful that night, and I'm glad she did it.
And it wasn't long after that she passed away, is that correct?
Within a month. Within a month.
And she died of what?
Aorta rupture. That was the final blow.
Oh, and today that you might not have that problem as much with all the medical advances we've got.
Except for it happened with John Ritter.
That's true.
Yeah,
it did, didn't
just
it?
a few years ago. You know, I guess it's a hidden.
You know, we've got about a minute and a half left, and that was the other story that you and I were talking about that we couldn't remember, was the John Ritter story.
Well, who's the next show up after this? Can't I talk? I can talk to them.
Russo's bookstore.
Russo's, yes. You
That's
know
right.
what?
You're going to be
If
busy.
people have questions, they could come to Russo's bookstore.
And what time are you going to be at Russo's
I'm going to be there
bookstore?
in 1 hour and 3 minutes from now.
So you're going to be there at about 2:30.
I will not be a rerun. Yes, 2:30.
Yes, live.
Live and
Not-
in person.
Not Memorex, it'll be live.
Yes.
Well, just for information purposes, that's about a half an hour from now.
Okay, please come to
Yes.
Russo's Books.
Yes,
And
yes.
also visit me on my website, thelucyfan.com.
Great. Okay, so just so I make sure I have this right for our listeners,
Okay.
you're going to be at Russo's Bookstore in the Marketplace at 2:30.
2:30.
2:30 to 5. And
Love that theme.
Yep, isn't that great?
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And
Thank
we're
you,
gonna
Michael.
do
It's
that.
been enjoyable.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for being here. Next weekend, we have Lisa Green, our district attorney, and we will see you in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business.